Hello, my name's Ralph and welcome back to the channel. It's my time, let's go. Today I'm just putting this little insert in at the front of my video as I had it made up and ready to go for this week, but I've been overwhelmed by the amount of people that have subscribed to my channel and have viewed my channel. I know you enjoyed the last video of us getting a basket case, and I'm stoked about doing it as well. We have a few other things that we have to finish up before we can get to that, so I hope you stick with us and follow us along as we do it. Again, I'd like to thank you all. You just blew an old guy's mind, and 20-some thousand views on the video. I thank you all so much. Thank you all for subscribing, and I hope you stick with us on our channel and enjoy the content. Also, later on in the video, I've attached at the end how I just made the Troc checker for those that are interested. I know some guys are wishing they had such a thing, so I'm going to kind of walk you through what I did to make my own checker, and maybe you'll find that interesting. Alright, let's get on with the video. Today we're going to do a little bit of work on my 81 out there, and as you've seen a week or so ago I had the thing out for a drive and it seemed to be working alright. But I had a noise in the top. It was a tick tick tick, and I just couldn't quite get over it. So I ended up tearing the thing apart. Now we've got the heads all apart, and I checked the rocker arms. I redid all those. They were all right. But when I get into the tops of these, I found a couple problems. Now it's been 10-12 years since I've done that motor, and admittedly I've learned a lot since then, especially about these 80 to 81 heads. They're specific. They don't have the clearances the other ones do, and even though I was putting a mild J-grind cam in it, I think I still ran into a little bit of problems, and I did find a couple little issues. So follow us along as we go along with these 81s, and I'm going to make them right and proper so we can put them back on the motor and everything will be as it should be. I looked at it and looked at it and looked at it, and I thought, well, I kept tearing things down and carrying things down until I virtually just had the cases left with the oil pump on it. As I looked at it, I realized it had a set of 40 thou over pistons in it, and the clearances weren't really tight on them. They weren't worn out, but they weren't really tight on them. And I thought, for me, as someone selling the bike to a new owner, I'd like to have it as good as I can make it and try to fix as many things as I can within reason. So I thought, someone else is going to have this bike. Hopefully they'll have this bike for many years, or it will get changed hands, but it will keep going in any case. So I decided to say the hell with it and spring for a new set of cylinders, new set of standard pistons, fitted them all, and I've got them on the bike now to start out with. So rather than have a set on there that was bored out to the max, then they find themselves in a position where they need a set of rings or something, they're going, oh man, you got to buy cylinders and such too. I didn't want to see that happen to someone. It's been a long time since I'd done any work on this bike. It probably been 10-12 years. A lot of stuff's gone down over the years and learned a lot over the years. We're going to go along and have a look at the heads. I couldn't really find anything else wrong, but there's always something. This is going to show you a few little things that I've come across that may help you out for some of you in the future, especially when they're dealing with these early 80 to 81 heads. So let's have a look and see what's up. So I've made a valve checker. I've gone along and made a truck style valve checker like this. I have ones for the Evos, and I've made this one also for the shovel heads. Now if you're interested in it, I made a video on it, but I didn't know if it'd be interesting to anyone or not, so I haven't put it up. Don't want to crush these arms. Here we go. Just going to be very careful with these. There. So the idea of this checker, for those who don't know, is that in your cam specs, they give you the specs of a top dead center lift, so to speak, and that's when both valves are open at the same time. And it's a critical piece of information because your valves can actually hit each other, and if things aren't clearanced properly, when they open, they can touch each other. With this little unit, I'm able to screw it down, open my valves up, and see just exactly where they're at that setting. As I said, in most cases, most heads are not too bad. I'm only running a J-grind cam in this, which is not a high lift. It's just a little bit up above stock. But anything above that, the next step up, you know, they always put in there and say, oh, the 81 heads, you know, you got to do head work. And I've had to do it on quite a few. We did Gus's there a few months ago. for his bike, and that required quite a bit of work to make sure that we had the clearances for it. And that bike seems to run nice and smooth and quiet as a church mouse. So. So in order to check the valve-to-valve clearance, we've used our little checker here, which used to be made by Troc, but Troc doesn't make them, and I have one for my Evolutions, and I made one up here for my shovel heads as well. Usually there's specs on the cams, and these particular cams will tell you that the lift at the high occurs at 0.154. That's the total lift of the valve. That's how much it will stick down into the head. So by taking this, we're on 0 here. We're going to go around 100, 10, 20, 30, 40, 55. Go there. We'll do the same with this one. There's 1, 10, 20, 30, 40, 55. Now when we just turn our heads over, this is what we're looking for, and we're looking for 60 thousandths of an inch in this area. And I'm a little snug there. But I'm thinking on this particular head that my intake valve has to go up a bit, and we're going to do the valve stem protrusion just to make sure to see how far it is. This we could work within safe parameters here, but I'd like to get it a little better if I can. So this is the rear head, and we know that the intake valve needs to have a little special work done to it. Now another measurement we can take for safety purposes is a measurement from valve to valve. And we've got our little tool here. And we're just going through it there. A little bit tight. There's what I would call a safe measurement. So if we measure between the two, I got about 277 thou. So the safety for your measurement here, the clearance between the two, you take the lift at top dead center, 154 thousandths of an inch, add 60 thousandths of an inch to it, and that should give us our clearance between here. And according to our calculations, it should be 214 thou. And as you can see, we got 277 here. So we're in the well in the safe zone there. So we're going to do the same check on this one at 154. 10, 20, 30, 40, 4, 55. 30, 40, 55. So we can put a 48 in there. And I think that also the intake valve has to come up a bit because the valve stem protrusion is not exactly right. So we're going to work with those and see where we can get. So we're also taking measurements to see how far our valve is sticking out of the head. A lot of them, like Avian suggest 630. They can be between 600 and 630 or 640. So we're 623 on that one, and we're 615 on that one. So we can come up a bit on this one. We can come up a bit on both of them. So maybe we'll cut them a little bit and see where we can get from there. So we just keep cutting away here and keep checking my valve stem protrusion to see how far it's sticking out to get it where we want to be. We want to be around the 625 to 630 mark for this setup. Just a little bit more. We should have it. So we've done some cuts and sank the valves up a little bit deeper. And as you can see, our 60 thou will go in there now, no problem. So now we have 60 thousandths of an inch between the two valves, just by syncing them up in the heads a little bit more. And we know that that one's right and good to go. We'll also take our measurement in here. We've got these set pretty close between the valves. It's a easy clearance there. Number 288 between the valves. So it should be like 214 to guarantee the clearance. It's a 154 plus 60 thou. That just slides down in there, no problem. No problem at all. So this is the front head, now we'll go at the rear. Takes give me 20 thou. Now something else that I have found in there is these collars. They're cut a little different. One's been thinned out, one hasn't, but the biggest discrepancy is that they're different in the height here than this one. This one is taller. So if we measure them, I got about 332 thou on that one, and 392 on that. 342, 52, 62, 72, 82, 92. It's 50 thousandths of a different inch clearance here that it can go down and hit the valve. So we're going to have to address that, because that was different in there as well, and that could be hitting the top of the guide. I put in a set of Andrews medium lift collars, which give you about 60 thousandths of an inch extra height in your springs, and they work very well. I had a set of lower ones that I could put in there, and but I don't need them. So I think this is going to be just fine for these. So we're going along and measuring how far it is between the guides and between the valves, and I've put a new high lift collar in there. 1297 is what I'm getting on that, and it should be a lot more than that. 1297. The intake valve's got to go in a little ways. 627. Lots of clearance there. So as we're doing this, we're taking from the top of the collar to the top of the valve guide and measuring that area. On this particular one now we've got 0.732. I'm taking off for the valve seal because I measured the inside and outside diameters of the valve seal, and I know that it's going to stick up 103 thou above the guide, so I have to take that into consideration when I'm figuring it out. And that should take care of getting all my calculations in place for what I'm looking for. Some of them, the only one that's really tall is the exhaust there, and I've shimmed it. And we also have an oversized valve guide in there. So it all looks good there. It all looks good. This clearance is relative, because what they say is if you take the valve lift, which is 405 in my case, and add 60 thousandths of an inch for extra variation, I need 465. That's what's needed. And as you can see, I've got plenty in each situation, yet my valve stacks are sitting up where they're supposed to be. This one here, we're just going to do a little trim in there to bring that up, probably 20 thousandths of an inch. I'll either trim the bottom a little bit just to give me my proper spring height, and then we'll be good to go. So in the end, this is what we ended up with after some dicking around and getting things set where we wanted it. And we're like 360 here, 364 here, 359 and 359 here. So that gives us plenty of clearance. So taking the time to do these measurements is critical on any sort of motor, but especially with these 80 to 81 heads. As I say, I think I had a valve ticking each other. I think that was my problem. It was ever so slight, but I did see a very tiny mark on that valve right there. And I couldn't really see where it had touched the other one. But you can see it. There is a shiny spot. Now we've eliminated that problem. And again, problem specific with these 80 to 81 hits. Checking that valve clearance to make sure that your top collar won't hit your guide. Sometimes the guides have to be trimmed down. And the other measurements that I've taken here, yes, I have a Troc checker, makes it a little bit easier for me to check the middle one, but you can check from valve to valve inside and check that measurement, and that'll give you a good idea of whether your valves are going to hit each other or not without having to have a Troc checker and things. So I hope I've helped you some on this, and now we're going to move ahead, get these things assembled, and get them back out on my 81. All right, so while we're getting our valve set up, and we want all the spring lengths to be the same, or as close as we can be, within 5 or 10 thousandths or somewhere close there, but that way it keeps the springs all at the same sort of tension. And what we use is some shims like this, and they go in underneath the spring pack to help set the bottom up to set you to the right measurement that you want there. And they would go in here underneath the bottom collar so that this height would be consistent throughout all the valves and give us the same pressure. So now we've got our other head done, and we've set it up on our checker, and we've done a little grinding to seat them in, and there's 60 thou. Goes in there, no problem. So we know that one's good to go without any more modifications. So what we're trying to do is, for our standing compressed spring pack at 0.360. Now all mine are running 356, 355, the other one at 354, but my intake one here was 323. So we took a little tiny skim off the bottom of the collar to take a couple thou off. And now I'm going to use this tool here. And what this tool does, here's a guide, and it'll go past the guide, and then it will cut around the outside of the guide in the aluminum head, lowering it down. Now quite often these aluminum heads are not even in there. I've found if you measure on one side, measure on the other side, it could be 10 or 12 thousandths discrepancy, easy. So we're hoping to just clean that up. So we're just going to take light cuts and try to get down where we're to. We'll take a couple measurements here first. 467. 220 thou off. About 10, just a little bit more, and we should have it. But when you're talking 10, 12 thousandths of an inch, we don't want to go over. .352. One little tiny skim off of it, and we should have it. .359. Pretty close. 359, 360. And that's what we're looking for in there. Now our spring packs will all have the same tension on them. I've shimmed some, and the other ones we've cut down a little bit. So we're just where we want to be. And that should give us the proper spring pressure at 1.36 height. And I like to take a good picture of stuff like this when I'm doing it. Then when I relate backwards to see what I done to the heads, I can always pull up the video and go, oh, there's what the settings were. So in the end, when I've got all my calculations done, I take it over and I put it in my little special thing that I got here, and I can crank it down and see that I have a lot of room before I ever get coil bind. So we have it set up in our lathe here, and I made this little arbor piece that the head rests on, and it's cut out inside to make room for the valves. So when we mount our vice grips on here and our dial gauge, and when we crank this in, it will compress the spring, and we can watch the gauge to see how far the valve is traveling down. And this piece, if we turn it around there, maybe you can see, is cut out inside of here. And this is an area so that the valve can go down inside when the head's mounted on it. And it works pretty well. So we've got it set up in here, and I'm able to crank it over zeroed. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm still not quite coil bound, but almost. So we'll check the intake while we're here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I go along and do that with each head to show that I'm not going to get coil bind before my valve lift. My valve lift is 0.405 plus 60, so that's 465, and as you can see, I've got plenty of clearance there, and I don't have to worry about anything hitting. But sometimes when you're working on that kind of stuff, it gets a bit tedious and takes some time. You're grinding, you're putting it back together, you're measuring. But now I have a good peace of mind, and I know there's no way those valves are going to clip each other, and I have lots of clearance for the tops, and I feel way better now knowing that I've taken the time and gone through them and everything is right and proper like it should be. So this will make a nice sweet motor, and being my compulsive self, I can't help myself from tearing things apart and always trying to make something better if I can, and I have the time, so why not? So next thing we'll do is we'll get back to assembling these heads, and then once we have them assembled, we'll get them on the bike. All right. So now just to finish things off, I'm just going to lap these in. Nice looking seat all around there. All right. Nice. Okay. So now we're going to try to assemble our heads. Being careful to be mindful of any kind of spaces or anything that we have in there, like on this one. So we are the exhaust on the rear head. Lube on the stems. Make sure that you don't bottom out on the collar itself. We've made sure that we got clearance on our collars, but if you just try to pound that down on there, your tool may hit the top of the bottom collar. We don't want that to happen. Okay. Well, let's see. So, let's try again here. That's better. There we go. Okay. Nice. Okay, I'll go along and do the other one, and you won't have to bore you with that. And then we'll be ready to install them out there on the bike. Okay, so now that we've got our heads all done, we're going to put our rocker boxes on. We got a new set of James gaskets. I always use James. They're thick and they're nice. And we have to make sure that we get the right rocker box on the right head. This is the rear head, so this is the front head. So, the front head is here, and we can tell because it has the fitting for the front. The rear head has the fitting. A little lube on the very tops. Make sure that our rocker arms move, not jammed up. Just about time for a new one. Edge there. Sometimes you gotta watch out for the chrome. Smaller. Okay. 14 pounds. Go. That's one. Make sure our rocker arms are clear. Go. Now we're all torqued down. The rocker boxes are torqued down to 14 pounds, foot-pounds, and it's time to go put them in the bike. Well, hello, my name is Ralph and welcome back to the channel. It's my time, let's go. Today we're going to be working on making a valve checker for our shovel heads. Back quite a few months ago, I made this type of checker here is what we're talking about for checking the valve heights. So what we're going to do is try to make one for a shovel head, as this is made for an Evolution, then it won't fit on the shovel head. And we've had to make a few modifications. So over the weekend I made a few changes. And we cut out a piece like this to start with. So we're gonna have to make some standoffs and things. I have an idea where I'm going, but we just have to work ahead at it and see where we can get. All right, so follow us along and away we go. So one of the first things we have to do is to make little standoffs to go on here. So I'm going to turn down some pieces that I can bolt down through here at about 1 3/4, and we're going to set those down and be able to have something to weld our plate to start with and figure out where we got to put the bends around. Now the valves stick up a little bit different on these ones, so we have to, they can't be like the Evolution ones. The angles are a little bit different, so we have to pay attention to where these are and where we're going to be able to put our little bent pieces like this to hold our gauges. So you can see this won't fit down on there. It's a totally different animal. Even when I line up the center, so to speak, they're not in place at all. So what we're going to do is step over to the lathe. I'm going to spin myself out, drill and spin myself out a couple little pieces of this and give me a starting point to work from. Okay, so we're going to start by facing off this little piece and getting it flat, and then we'll bring our little center drill in here and drill a center drill in it, and then step drill it up to the size we want. So let's start just getting it cleaned off. There we go. So now we've got our parting tool on there to part it off, and I'm looking for about 1 3/4 is roughly where I want to be. So go ahead and get this parted off. Face that off a little bit just to make sure it's flat. You want that again around 1 3/4 right there. Always keeping your parting tool close to the jaws as you can for support. So we've had to cut these down a little bit lower, so we're just going to clean them up. There we go. Pretty well got to get your sizes figured out, and I know from my other ones that I did cut the side plates down a little bit more. So I've done the same on this. So when we go to bend them around, I can put my angle pieces up on it. So I've got an older head here that I can begin to put my pieces on so that I don't have to be welding on the newer head. But this will help me line things up. So we'll place our pieces on. The other head has a short one here, we know, so we're going to have to take that into account. Wonder which way I should go with it. What if we go the other way, the other side of the head? Wonder if that's going to give me any advantage. It's a little farther away. Well, that's about the same. So we're going to kind of eyeball it here, and I already see where we're going to need to bend it a little bit to make it fit a little bit better. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to mark it and eyeball it. It doesn't have to be precise. And right about there, we'll mark it. And here. And with those two little marks, we're going to put it in the vise and just bend it a little bit in that area, if we can. Doesn't have to be very much. Just a little bit. So we know we have to go this way with it a little bit, so we're just gonna give it a tap. Just like that. Not very much, but just a slight bend in it. Yep, and that's plenty. So we'll do the same for the other one on our mark. Get a way to get at it here. And we'll just give it a little tap. And this will help it fit right up to the pieces that we want to weld onto it. So that's got that in place. So that will help it fit against these pieces here. And that looks about right there. Okay, with it marked out, now we're going to try to bend that part around just here. That's the inside of our mark, so it's just the outside that we need to bend around that. So I think what I'm going to do is tack weld these pieces on here, and then I'll bend the final ones around there so I know they're in place. Because it'll be too hard to line it up exactly afterwards. So we'll just see if we can grab these to start with. Okay, that looks about right. So next I'm going to take it over and just tack weld these pieces on here, right where they are, so that I know I'm close, and then I'll try it again and make sure that everything fits okay. So we'll go over and weld them on. So we've got our pieces in place now, here and here, clamped in. I'm just going to put a tack on those and a tack on these. Then we'll proceed to bend those around there where I want them so that they'll match up properly. So let's do it. Pretty is not the issue. Functionability is what we're shooting for. Okay. Now we'll go over there and do a little more fitment on it and make sure that everything's fitting properly. Got it mounted in the vise, so we're just going to tap these around at kind of a 90-degree angle and try to fit it that way. There. So now we've put our other pedestals on there and we've centered them up in where we want them there. And I'm going to clamp them on and I'm just going to weld them on there. May cause a little bit of tweaking there to get them just where we want them, but that's what we're going to do. It's only these little ones and this little one here, so let's get at it. There we go. So now our piece has all its standoffs on there. It should fit on the head just like that. Now we have to go along and start making our pieces for the adjusters and the hoo-haws up here to hold the dial indicators in place. So there's a few pieces to go yet. We have to put our dial indicator pieces on there and our threaded pieces to move the valves down. But we're moving along good and it slips on the head nice, and that's the main thing we wanted. So we'll start having a look at the other pieces. Now that we've got most of our pieces welded up, this is sort of what it's looking like now. Kind of gives you the idea, and I like to bolt it down solid. Maybe I don't have to, Maybe I don't have to put it that solid, but I like to make things like that. So it should slide right on our head, just like that. And we've got our shallow one here on this side, and if we have a tall one on the other heads, we just add our piece to it here, and that will do the tall one. Now we have to figure out where to put the screw in to line up with our valve. The valve is sticking up here, and what we need to do is get this bolt set up so that it will push down on that valve as we adjust it. So I've got some little pieces cut out, and what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to tap a hole in it, giving me lots of leeway, and then I can tack it. Put my screw in it and tack it on here, and see where I'm going for it. I don't want to stick it out too far. If I stick it out too far, I'll have a hard time getting my gauge here to be able to hit the top of the valve stem. I mean, it does reach in quite a way, so it might be all right. But first off, this is what I'm going to do. I think if I just make it off to one side a little bit, that I'll be fine. So, kind of mark the spot here. Anywhere there will do me. I'll go over to the drill press and we'll drill and tap these, and then we'll go on from there. And hopefully it will start to come together and start to be useful. Okay, and we are 1/2 inch, I believe. No, 3/75, 3/8. So I'll have to get a tap drill size for that. So I'll just get my handy dandy machinist manual that I've had for years and years and years, and we look through it here. And we have a coarse thread, national coarse thread, and I need a 5/16 drill to drill it for tapping. So I'll get that, I'll get over to the mill and do it, and I'll come back to you. I thought I could get them together, but they don't want to. It's okay, got one through. And there we go. Drilled out for tap drill size. So now we'll go along and we'll tap these out to 3/8, and I can put my bolt in it. Then I can line it up nicely with the top of the valve to see where I want to weld it on there. So let's do that. And there we go, both of them made. So now we're going to try to fit them over onto our piece there and see if we can line them up with our bolt to hit the tops of the valves. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do with this is to put a little bend in it right here, and then I can weld it flat to the plate. So we're sort of lining it up here, and I've screwed it through quite a ways. And that'll allow me to get roughly where I want to be there with it. So I'm thinking the bend is going to have to be about there to put me in line with where I want to be. So first step will be stick one in the vise and bend it and see if I can get it to the angle I want. No doubt it'll take some trial and error. Now we're starting to look pretty close there on that. Hopefully I haven't distorted the threads too badly. I may have to run the tap through it again. I will after I weld it, I know. Okay, you're looking pretty good right there. A little higher. A little tap there. Flatten it a little. Then I'm going to put a couple nuts on just to tighten it down. And make sure it's sitting in place. With my screw all the way down and the valve down to like where the collar is, by the time I put my little nylon tip on this, that should be just about perfect there. You just gotta bend it a little tiny bit more. Take some frigging around there with it, but not very much. Closer I can get it here now, then the less sticking with it I'll do later. Okay, I got another idea. I'm going to remove the valve. I've got an arbor that's close to that. It's pretty close. So close there. It's always one that won't quite go through, isn't it? I think I'm going to take it over, put a little tack on it, and see if I can line it up, and then I can tap it around a little bit and get it where I want it and get things lined up in here. We'll be back. So now we've got our two pieces here. Put a valve in there to see where it's going. You could tap it up just a hair. Once I weld it, I could bend it up a little bit. But I'm pretty damn close there. So now we're going to take it off the head there and weld it up some, and then we'll fit it again and see how it's doing. And then I got to put the things on for my dial indicators, and I think that should do it. So we're getting down to it now. Got these things in here, they're looking pretty good, and got this one in. So the hardest part is getting those all lined up. Now if I stick a valve in there, exhaust one, you can see how it's lining up with the exhaust valve there. You can see how the intake one is lining up with the screw. And that's what we want. We want to be able to screw them down, open both valves at once, and see where we're going. And that's the only way we'll know. With these heads, it's not imperative, but I like to check. I like to be able to check. So it's an important thing to me. And I wanted the new tool to do the shovel heads since my my other one works so well. So all that's left to do now is to mount my dial bore gauges, my dial gauges. So I've cut some of these pieces out with the little slot in them, and I'm hoping to slide them down on there, find a spot where they'll go, where I can mount my dial gauges. I've got to find the happy medium there where I want them. So I sort of got to assemble a valve, or assemble the valves, so I can get them in the proper position. So we're going to work away on that. I think I've got one in the other head. I do. So we'll just pop this off. Just set this over here. This one has a valve in it, so we've got to figure out where to put this so I can bolt my gauge to it, and it will leave me enough room to set the gauge in there straight. Need it parallel with the valve and down far enough so that we can compress it. Okay, we'll work away at it. So I got my little pieces on. These are to hold the gauges now, and these are for our adjustments. So everything looks to be good. I just got to weld these on a little more solid, and we should be good to go. So, looks like we've got it. I did lose a little screw that I'll have to come up with. I'm gonna cut me a little screw. This one's too long. You work with what you got at the moment and then curse it later. I think we only got to go 170 lift. So I just got to put my little plastic things on, but there she is. So now when I turn it down, you can tell what we're doing. That will do it. So there we go. I took the gauges and such off of my other one. I didn't have another set for it, and there's no need to have two sets. And I haven't quite got it all my nuts on there, but this is going to do the job just fine. So I'm pretty pleased about that. And for the amount you use it, it doesn't have to be a killer handmade unit, but it'll work fine for me. And I'll be able to again lay it back on the ears, just like that, so that I can, check inside there and make sure everything, the distances are what they should be when everything's open. So we'll show you some more of that probably when we get to it. But now I have one for shovels, and I feel good about that. How much I use it, I don't know, but it's a tool and I like to have one, so I think I'll throw a coat of paint on this one. But she's good to go. So if you enjoyed this video today on how to make our valve spring clearance checker, subscribe, like, comment, ring the bell, do them kind of things. It helps our channel to grow. We appreciate it very much. While you're looking at things, check out Hippie's Chopper Corner down south. You can see him on YouTube, and he's the home of the sketchy choppers, and I'm sure you'll enjoy what he's up to. Also check out Slickhead's Custom Cycles. He's just a barrel of laughs, and we have some fun together, but he's got a good channel and well worth checking out, so support those guys as well. Hopefully we'll see you in the next video. All right.